Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have our next guests joining us here today, Tom Olson and Steve Perla. Yes, we're talking to them today about their company and, of course, all they're doing. So, Tom, I know you're the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder. Steve, as the president and co-founder as well. We're talking about ADAC. So why don't you give us a little bit of your background? Tell us what the company is all about and, of course, the amazing mission you're working on.
Well, thank you, Jill, for having us, and it's a pleasure to be with you and with PBN. And to talk about ADAC is to talk about that which has been and continues to be a passion and a vocation for both Steve and myself, but also for all of our teams. And to answer your question directly, Jill, what ADAC does is we work with K-12, both public and private schools throughout the country. We began our start, and we had our start in the private school world, and it's our private school clients who will always have a very special place in our hearts because that is really where our mission began. But to be clear, we're working now with both private schools and public schools, and our mission can be summed up, I think, pretty succinctly in the following way. So we work with private and public school teachers and leaders to help them to teach better. And in particular, our focus is on helping K-12 educators to teach and reach students with learning differences or special needs. That's really has been our sweet spot. But we also, Jill, support K-12 education, both public and private education, in a wide variety of other ways. And we do this primarily through professional development services that we offer, again, to help teachers teach students better with a particular focus on special needs. But we also support schools in other ways as well beyond professional development, everything from helping private schools to access very important resources, both philanthropic and otherwise, to helping schools deal with other challenges and issues and opportunities through some of our strategic planning that we do with them as well. So I'll have Steve fill in any gaps that I may have missed.
Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of conversation. We're excited to get started. So the ADAC.com, that's spelled THEADAC.com. Is that the best website for you all?
That is correct. That's a great website to send folks. And then from there, they can link to the public school site as well. And we also have a nonprofit organization, the ADAC Advocacy, which is a 501c3. And I know that in future episodes, we'll be talking a little bit more about the mission of ADAC Advocacy as well.
Perfect. And also, Steve, I want to get to know you, Tom, as well. So I don't know who wants to start first, but tell us both all a little bit about your background, if you don't mind. Do you want to move on over to Steve first?
Sure.
Tell us what brought you here.
Yes, I'll have Steve fill in any gaps about the overview of ADAC that I may have missed. And then, Steve, you can tell the listeners who you are and what makes you tick.
Exactly.
Well, again, nice to be with you, Jill, and nice to be with the folks who are listening. And I would just say, first of all, as in relation to ADAC, the most important thing I think to understand is what we're trying to do is provide capacity to schools, particularly after COVID. There's so many different issues that our teachers and our leaders are dealing with, and oftentimes they need support. And a lot of the services that we're providing that Tom just described really are providing capacity for them to reach out to those various needs, in particular, really trying to help those students who have learning differences. As relates to me, I have been in education for over 35 years and also in the field of politics. So most of my professional background has been both in education and public policy. As relates to education, I spent 35 years in Catholic school education. I have been a Catholic school teacher. I have been a Catholic school superintendent, and I worked about 8 years at the University of Notre Dame, working with Catholic schools, both at the domestic level and international level, helping them really look at strategic planning, accessing resources, and really in that capacity as well, looking at various teaching and learning issues. And on the public policy side, I've held elective office in my local community. I did that for about 12 years when I was a young pup.
Aww.
And it goes back many, many years ago now. I served as a school committee member, city council, and ultimately as the mayor of the city.
Wow.
And did that for about 12 years. I really enjoyed it. And that public policy work has also evolved into the work that I have done on behalf of private schools. And I have lobbied for a variety of different programs, both at the state and local level, as well as at the national level with Congress. So really great to be with all of you today.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for being here. And then, did you want to share a little bit about your background as well, Tom? And then, how did the two of you all connect to start this?
My background, Jill, has been supporting private schools primarily on more the fundraising and development side of things. And so in my past, I have worked with private schools, helping private schools to both strategically convey their respective missions so that their cases for support, for philanthropic support from their donors could be the best that they could be. And so my experience with education has been helping schools to acquire unto themselves and for themselves the financial resources that they need. And it was really in that theme where Steve and I first connected. As I said, I was more on the philanthropic management side of things, but there's another resource out there that private school kids have access to, and that is the federally funded resources, particularly resources that are available to them through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, as well as through the title programs, which is part of the current Every Student Succeeds Act. And it was on that level at sort of that dealing with the federal program resources that are available that Steve and I first connected. And so I'll pivot to your next question. Steve and I met about 10 years or so ago. And we both figured out that we both had a passion for not only working with schools, but making sure that schools, and particularly private schools, again, that's where our heart began, and that's where our heart continues to beat. And we're honored to be working with public schools, but this began with private schools, as I mentioned. And one of our passions collectively has been helping private schools to acquire the resources, financial and otherwise, that they need to strive and succeed. And it was at that level that Steve and I connected. We figured out that we got along, we liked each other, we believed the same things about education. And it was really at that point that inspired our beginning work at ADAC, helping private school networks throughout the country to ensure that their students were fully accessing their equitable share of IDEA-funded services. And that's the level at which Steve and I connected. But I'll have Steve also fill in the memory of how we became affiliated with each other. Steve?
Perfect.
Yeah, when we learned that we both had the same interest, it was rather interesting that at the very time that we learned about that and we became friends, that the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops had reached out to us to do a national study. And so we did a national study on behalf of Catholic schools looking at their access to what Tom just referred to, IDEA.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found across the nation is that there are billions of dollars being left on the table where we had all of these students who needed service that were not accessing these vital services. And when we
Yeah.
learned that, we thought, this is really a need. And the roots of our company, or the genesis of our company, really falls back to that study, looking at the data and saying, oh my God, we have all these kids in this country that really need these services, and these services are available and
Yeah.
they're not accessing them. So
Yeah.
that really motivated us, and as Tom said, inspired us to really move forward and say, okay, we're going to do something about this. And that really was I guess, the genesis of the company.
Great. Well, I know for today, we kind of stated a little bit about your mission, again, empowering K through 12 educators, meeting to the learning needs of all students. And did you want to kind of piggyback and talk a little more about your mission? And then we'll, continue to talk more about the work that you're doing serving both the private and public schools. I know there's a lot to get to today. So who wants to take that question?
I'll take it first, Jill.
Sure.
And that is because of my engagement for 35 years in Catholic schools, I have seen so much. And really, what breaks your heart is when you have a parent who comes to you
Mm,
and says, my child needs these services, and I'm having a very difficult time accessing them. And the child is very comfortable in their school setting.
yeah.
It's really important, as you know, in education, that a child be comfortable in their school setting to be successful. And you know that these resources are out there, but there are barriers to accessing them. And so, I've seen the whole gambit, children with autism, children with cancer, children who are suffering with various social emotional issues, all of which can easily be in some ways at least mitigated or addressed as relates to education to make their lives a lot more normal and perhaps even provide to them a real foundation to be successful. And so when you know that these situations exist and you know that it really affects a child's life in both the short and the long term, I think it really motivates you to see what you can do to help those children.
Hmm.
And so when we talk about our mission, we remind ourselves every day, we get mired into the law, we get mired in terms of our instructional coaching, we get mired in terms of raising money, all this stuff, the processes, the bureaucracies. But at the end of the day, the mission really is about how do we help these kids who really need these services because it is going to make an enormous difference in their life. So I always remind myself, whether it be through ADAC and the work I did previously, at the end of the day, what we're doing is really trying to help kids. And to me, that's just really critical in terms of these children's lives.
And Jill, I would add to that our part and parcel to our mission, the thrust of our mission, Jill, is helping kids, as Steve has so eloquently stated. But when it comes to the concept of helping kids, the image that has oftentimes motivated me, and an image that quite literally gets me out of bed in the morning, and I'm kind of a history nerd, so forgive the historical reference, but I think of Michelangelo, and I think of his incredible sculpture of David, right? And at one point in the distant past, that sculpture, that David, was simply a profane block of marble. And it
Hmm.
took a master, it took Michelangelo to see within that marble the potential that lay hidden within. And he literally began to chip away at that marble, chip away, chip away, chip away, to reveal to the world what he knew was already there, Jill, which was
Yeah.
the potential hidden within the marble. I think that's a apt image for what motivates our mission at ADAC, which is really what it's about when we talk about helping kids. It's really helping kids to reach their full God-given potential. And it's very concerning to hear that in schools throughout the country, students with learning needs are
Hmm.
not being serviced the way that they should be. And as a result, they're not meeting their potential that they should be. Because if we look at, again, I'm going to use a historical reference. If we look at history, some of the most brilliant, most defining individuals in human history have been at one point students who would have qualified if they were
Hmm.
in our time and era for services under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. I think of folks like as diverse as Albert Einstein, who suffered from dyscalculia. I think of Agatha Christie, the famous 19th century novelist who suffered from um, uh, dyslexia.
Yeah.
I think of any number of other folks throughout history, both past and not so past, who have a learning difference, but who are as bright, as intelligent, and who have as great potential as anyone else. And it's our mission at ADAC to ensure that all kids, but especially those with special needs, are not denied the opportunity to acquire and to reveal to the world, as Michelangelo once revealed to the world, the potential hidden within that block of marble, their potential, which is also a gift to the world. And that's really the thing in the image, if you will, that motivates me, that inspires me, and really undergirds everything that we at ADAC are all about.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And what else did you want to add to that?
No, I feel good about. I think we've covered that pretty well, Jill. I think as Tom said, we're really trying to help those students reach their God-given potential. And that's really, I think, describes well what we do each and every day.
And I would also add, Jill, that we look at, or at least I look at education and the processes involved in education, which is the teaching, as really a vocation. Teachers are born, not made, and each and every day in interacting with our clients, I am humbled by the absolute dedication that educators throughout the country have to the mission that is education. Whether we're talking teachers or principals or superintendents, everybody is aligned with the mission, again, to help kids. And one of our great joys, one of my great joys, is also helping teachers and leaders to be successful in their vocations. And of course, their success is measured by, in part at least, by the outcomes of their students. And it's helping to improve those outcomes is where our professional development services and supports and our other services come in to really enable teachers as well and leaders as
Yeah.
well to meet their full potential as the educators that they've been called to be.
And I think that's
Beautiful.
really an important point, Jill, because, you know, I think too often teachers are, criticized.
Mm.
And I don't think, people realize sometimes how difficult it is to be in that classroom day in and day
Ah,
out. And what we have found, is that these teachers are really thirsting for this knowledge and for this help. And we've been very impressed by the way in which they're always looking for different ways, innovative ways to really
yeah.
help students, and they really care about their students. And so I think it's really important just to pause for a moment and just really congratulate the work that they do each and every day. It just makes a big difference in these kids' lives. And the leaders the same way. To be a leader today in a school is so different. As I mentioned, I was in education for 35 years, and just 8 or 9 years ago, it's not as difficult as it is today to be a leader. There's just so much on these people's plates. And just with the aftermath of COVID, I know we hate to even talk about that word sometimes, but the reality is that you have so many parents and families and kids who have, the impact of that in terms of emotional anxiety, behavioral issues that these schools are confronted with, and they just need the kind of support to really get over this hump, I think, to really make a difference for a lot of these kids and families.
And
Beautiful.
and
Go ahead.
Jill, I would add to that. I know that we're all long sick and tired of dealing with, talking about, thinking about, and opining on COVID, right? But the
Yes and
reality
no,
is,
because yeah, that taught us a lot and it
it did.
hurt us a lot, but it also helped us. And you never know what's going to happen in the future, right? So it's great to be prepared.
Exactly. And so COVID kind of came at a time when we were pivoting toward establishing ADAC, right?
Hmm.
And what we found that, among other things, in education was that the profound learning loss that resulted, that's going to have an impact, unfortunately, on literally a generational impact. But the profound learning loss among K to 12 students was really something that we sought to step up to the plate to address. And addressing that learning loss by
Yep.
helping teachers, again, to teach better and
Hmm.
to reach their students better is a large part of what we do through our professional development services and everything else. But COVID did have an impact, obviously, on everyone. To your point, Jill, in some ways the impacts have been positive, but we think of COVID as in some ways a nightmare. But out of the nightmare that COVID was, emerged a dream and
Yep.
the reality of a dream. And for Steve and me, the dream that became ensconced in reality was ADAC's founding. And
Yep.
ADAC's founding, in part, was predicated upon the needs that we were experiencing in the field of education because of the pandemic. And so we look at COVID as, I guess, to sum it up, as sort of both a blessing and a curse, right? And
No,
because if it weren't for COVID, who knows if
absolutely.
our
Yeah.
business would have been established as well and as quickly as it was.
Perfect. And again, ADAC serving both private and public schools. We want to remind everyone a little bit more about them. And again, you established the ADAC Advocacy Foundation. That's to help ensure the private school students, right, can fully and equitably participate in federal education programs.
That is
And
correct.
that's Every Student Succeeds Act, the ESSA, which you say is the most recent reauthorization of the 1965's Elementary and Secondary Education Act, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then you have the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. So again, the IDEA provides federally funded special education related services to students with disabilities. That's between the age of 3 and 21. And then the ESSA is providing the school age students and their teachers with a variety of educational services. As you mentioned, the purpose to strengthen, support positive educational outcomes.
1 in 5 children in the United States have learning differences, making it more challenging than ever to be a teacher or school leader. At ADAC, we empower K-12 educators to meet the learning needs of all students through customized professional development and coaching services. Learn more at www.theadac.com. That's THEADAC.com.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. Tom Olson, Steve Perla joining us here today, our Chief Executive Officer, co-founder, also president and co-founder, joining us from ADAC to talk more about all the services that they offer. And it's been a great conversation so far. And I want to know about some hurdles that you all and obstacles that you've had to overcome, if you don't mind, that may help inspire some men and women as well.
Well, Jill, I can just state generally, and I think any person who's ever started a business or an organization can probably relate. But a phrase that we have occasionally used, in some pithy ways, of course, would be that we refer to our operations as quote, building the plane while we're flying it.
Yeah.
And that has been our experience as a small business. I know that's the experience of many, 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 in fact, most small businesses. And so I've enjoyed the challenge of flying that plane, but for us, the biggest importance for us is how we deal with and treat our clients, which is to say, we want to be sure that we are being responsive in real time to the very many needs that have encroached upon K-12 education in this country, both among private schools as well as among public schools. And so our goal and our intention is to remain responsive. But as a result of being responsive, we've had to be nimble as a company, right?
Yeah.
And we've had ideas that we've tested, hypotheses that we've tested in the field. And that's all a way of helping us to really ensure that our services are customized and customizable to, again, the particular needs of our clients. We want to be seen as a partner of our clients, and good partnerships rely on give and take. And what we hope to be able to give are solutions to very specific and by the way, very impactful problems. And that's one of the reasons I think we've been so successful, is because ADAC we pride ourselves on our responsiveness to our individual client needs. Steve, I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
Yeah, I would say that one of the challenges, and we've been very, very blessed in this regard, is finding the right human resources, because we're a company that's really based on services and providing services. And to make that happen, you really have to find quality personnel.
Yep.
And so it's really important as our company grows that we continue to be able to find the kind of personnel that we've been blessed to find so far. And these people make all the difference. Right now we have over 100 employees across the country, and they're serving about 2,500 different schools across the nation. And we rely very heavily on their abilities, their dedication, and their passion. And it really does, again, make a difference in terms of how successful we're going to be in terms of our work. And so one I would suggest to anyone looking to build a company is to make sure that you really find the right people who really have an interest and a passion in the work that you're doing, and certainly have the gifts and talents to pull it off.
Yep.
The other thing I would say too is don't get in any way discouraged.
Okay.
Because at the beginning, you're going to have some cash flow issues. You're going to have some bumps along the way, and you can't be discouraged by that, because that's just part of doing business, and you got to be prepared for it. And I think in the long run, it's really about tenacity. If it's something you have a passion for, and you're willing to sort of run it, really address the various issues that will come up and get over those little, barriers from time to time, you're going to be fine. And so I just really encourage people to get beyond that point and just really follow their passion.
Beautiful. And we still have just a few minutes left in the show. And I know this is our intro show in a sense. So what else did you want to add for today's conversation? Steve, Tom, take it away.
Yeah, I would just add as the CEO that, and this dovetails right off of Steve's previous point, that we're only able to be as successful as we have been and as successful as we endeavor to be in the future, based on the quality of the talent and the quality of the people that we have working with and for us. And I always say that our human resources is and always will be our greatest resource. And so I just want to give credit and props and compliments to our people, our team members, Many of whom, by the way, over these next 10 episodes, Jill, you'll be introducing to the world, and,
Yeah.
and they will talk about their own experiences of working with ADAC and for ADAC. But I just want to give props where props are due, and that is again to our people, and they all know who they are.
Aw.
And you'll meet many of them over these coming days.
Yes, cannot wait. Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And let's remind everyone how we can reach out to you again. I know theadac.com, the ADAC.com is a good place to start, but there's also another website. Which one did you want to share next?
Well, there's actually three websites total, Jill. So
Yes.
www.theadac.com is certainly the place to which folks can go. From off of that website, they will be linked also to the public school website, which is www.theadacpublic.com. So THEADACPUBLIC.com. And again, those two sites are linked, the private and the public. And then we also have our new 501c3 organization.
Yep.
And that's www.theadacadvocacy.com, www.theadacadvocacy.com. And they can check out our federal programs work on that website as well.
Perfect. And I know you say, find your passion, be tenacious, never forget to love and respect the people in your life. Beautifully said. I'm reading that from their notes.
Good.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
That's so
Go ahead.
important. No, I think that's so important, Jill. It really is.
Well, thank you again for being here, for joining us, and a little teaser for next week. What are we going to be focusing on?
Next week, you will be interacting with some of our staff folks, Dr. Sandra Drummy, Dr. Julie Cantillion, and then Matt Maloney, who's on our team as the VP of Educational Partnerships, and Kate McConnell, who is working on the advocacy side of our organization. And next week, the topic will be general education challenges that ADAC is equipped to respond and address. So we'll be talking, among other things. I don't want to give too much away, but my assumption is they'll be talking about everything from the realities of SEL, social emotional learning challenges, to the teacher shortage, to the challenges in special education, to the learning gaps in reading and math. And also, here's an interesting one, the impact, the real impact, and I think the exciting impact that artificial intelligence is also going to start to exert on K-12 education. So those will be among the topics that next week, Drs. Drummy, Cantillion will be addressing with you, along with Matt Maloney and Kate McConnell.
Beautiful. Well, thank you again, Steve Perla, Tom Olson, and we appreciate your time here today. Thank you for filling us in and for doing all the work you're doing to help so many. We appreciate it.
We appreciate the invite, Joe. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Have a fantastic day. To all of our listeners, stay tuned. More of the show's coming up after the break.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.